Aaron Gratzmiller is a saxophonist, a pianist, and a composer. He's a graduate of Berklee College of Music, majoring in saxophone performance. He's played with Kurt Elling, Antonio Hart, Robert Valera. His debut album, Over the Edge, with the Pearcy-Gratzmiller Quintet, is coming out soon. Aaron, welcome to the show.
Yeah, excited to be here.
Hey, so when's that debut album coming out?
Yeah, we don't have a set release date yet, but it's coming out next month. We just finished mixing and mastering yesterday, so I'm excited.
Oh man, I thought you'd been releasing albums before. Is this your a completely list? Tell me about the album. Is it just full original music?
Yeah, it's completely. I wrote 6 of the songs, and then my co-leader Wayne Pearcy, he wrote 4 of them. It's completely original music. Yeah,
it's a quintet. So, who are the other people in the band?
Yeah, so we're kind of we have some people that are kind of in the New England, New York area. So Fabio Rojas on the drums.
Oh, he's a great drummer. Yeah.
Oh, he's excellent. Yeah, I met him in college. It was great. Matt Savage on piano, who's like sort of a local guy, but he
I know Matt Savage. He's
yeah.
he's like a prodigy, right, for piano.
Yeah.
Didn't he go to Berklee? Like he went to Berklee looking like an absolute kid, and he was just like testing into all of the best classes, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think he's a genius. I mean, he's recorded a lot of music.
I saw a video of him. Like it said, he walked to the microphone and was like, "I'm now gonna play something in like some bizarre, like odd time signature," and then he proceeded to just play it. I was like,
he's. I don't know. I don't hear him mess up too much.
That's amazing.
I play in his group too.
This is a serious. I mean, I want the audience to know this is a serious band. I mean, Aaron, I've really admired, very much for a very long time. You're an amazing piano player, and I know you're going to be very modest about that. But when I was in Boston, we were looking to get piano players for the school that we worked at. And I remember we were just hiring a bunch of people, and they said they played jazz, and it sounded okay. And then you came in under the recommendation of Chris Jangalewski, who we had on the show before. And just from the first bars and stuff, I said, this guy, he can play. This guy knows what he's doing. It sounds right, And but you know what? That's not your main instrument. Saxophone is your main instrument, right?
That's true.
Yeah. How does that happen? So you've been playing saxophone and piano for a very long time, correct?
Yeah. I started playing the piano. It's 6 years old actually, and I picked up the sax in 4th grade. In the U.S., most kids pick up wind instruments in 4th grade, like with their band program. So that's kind of how I got into that. But yeah, the piano has been forever since I can remember.
The saxophone. I mean, here in Asia, it's not as common as in the United States, but the culture in the United States, I mean, to hear like horn section, it's just a wonderful thing. I mean, over here in Asia, it's just a lot of piano, a lot of violin, I guess guitar sometimes, and I guess some drums, but like horn sections, they sound fantastic, and there's a culture, right? Did you play saxophone in a lot of ensembles in school growing up? Like, was it middle school and high school?
Yeah, absolutely. Starting in elementary school, we had a combined band. Middle school, we had jazz band, concert band, and
now, did you start off doing jazz right away, like listening to jazz records, or there's actually the saxophone is quite well represented in the classical repertoire, right? I mean, at least in the 20th century, it started to really take off.
Yeah, absolutely.
What kind of were you started off?
I didn't get into that until.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I got into classical saxophone a little bit later. I think I got into jazz a lot earlier, but in 4th grade it was kind of like mostly pedagogy and stuff that's not genre specific.
Right.
I definitely liked jazz pretty early.
What kind of books did you start off with? And if you look back, were they good books to start off with?
Yeah. So the very first one that I ever used was on the saxophone was the Standard of Excellence series, which was meant to be used with like groups of young musicians. And it was good. It was laid out in a very clear way. I thought there was a lot of information to go back on. And
would you say that the saxophone pedagogy is pretty well covered? for any kids starting out? There's plenty of good material to start off with.
Yeah, there's a handful of really good books. I mean, when I teach myself, I usually like to start out with the Rubank method, which is kind of a similar one.
Okay, I'm very interested in different methods. Are there different methods to saxophone playing?
Yeah, sure. I think that in the beginning is kind of learning fingerings, but depending on the sax is such a versatile instrument that's used in so many different ways. You kind of have to put on a bunch of different hats after you've learned the fingerings. I mean, for example, like in a jazz style, you might change like the pitch a little bit versus like classical where you want maybe a straight tone, like little things like that where you have to pick up. Most of these method books maybe are more in the classical tradition. They're based off of like clarinet and oboe methods originally.
I read that Charlie Parker when he went to France, he got to meet his saxophone idol, who was a classical player. One of his classical saxophone idol, Marcel something. I can't remember the name. I think
Marcel Mule.
I think so. Possibly? Yeah, that's right. That's right. And so, what's that like? Actually, I mean, like classical technique on the saxophone. Is it very different from jazz technique?
I don't really think so. There's sort of a cliche that goes around academic music that there's only 12 notes. Kind of goes around because it's kind of true, at least in our system of music that we're using, and jazz music sort of came out of like European band music in some ways. I mean, obviously there's a lot of influences from different cultures throughout, but that influence like carried through into jazz. So I think like most jazz players practice like maybe classical etudes, and some of them were written for the sax. So a lot of them were actually written for the oboe, which is a much older instrument than the saxophone. Yeah.
Do orchestras typically have the saxophone is in the woodwind section, right? I mean, that's true. What other instruments are in the woodwind family?
Yeah, woodwinds. I think the most well-known woodwind instrument is the flute. Right. The clarinet, the oboe, which is an instrument with two reeds, is in orchestral music. The bassoon, which is, I think, the oldest unmodified woodwind instrument that we still use in the orchestra.
Right.
We
have to differentiate, right, between the brass section and the woodwind section. Are they completely different? And I mean, do they have some, other than using the breath, do they have some serious differences to really differentiate them?
Yeah, of course. The brass instruments are typically, the sound is produced by buzzing the lips into a mouthpiece, and the instrument itself has very few moving parts. Like, for example, the trombone, you're just moving a slide. A trumpet, you're pushing down valves, and the musician has to kind of generate the different notes just with muscles in their mouth and in the airstream and whatnot. Woodwinds, while there's a bunch of different methods for getting the sound, like for example on the saxophone, you blow air over like a wooden, it's not really wood, it's a reed that vibrates when you blow air over it.
I always hear about the saxophonists always fighting with reeds, and what does that mean actually, of fighting with a reed or having a tough time with their reed?
Yeah, well, I mean, reeds themselves, like the plant, is a very fast-growing like plant that grows in.
Oh, it's a plant. It's like okay.
Yeah, right. And
shows my ignorance. I thought it was something you just manufactured.
It grows really fast.
So it's it's like an organic thing that you use to vibrate.
Yeah, okay. Right. And every single reed's a little bit different because every single plant is a little different.
Is it hard to get consistency then?
Yeah. Most woodwind players, except for flutists who don't use reeds, of course, they know how. Most woodwind players know how to adjust their reeds. Like we have, I have like some tools for that I take with me pretty much everywhere. And it's winter here right now, and it's like the reeds warp when the humidity
Oh,
changes,
goodness.
and yeah, it's kind of a can of worms sometimes with that, but
That's
you know.
interesting. So most people don't think about these things, but there's a certain there's a practical kind of consideration that you have to have when you're playing an instrument. People just assume you go on stage and you blow into a hole and that's it. That's you don't have to worry
Not at
about
all,
it.
yeah.
If only it were that easy, right?
I wish it was. I do.
I want to talk about the saxophone now. Let's talk a little bit about the history of the saxophone because it does have a very rich history of amazing players, and I really want my audience to know about the history because I really believe that all throughout history, great players really, I mean, if you're a great player, you should be listened to because there's something special going on. And so, especially in the saxophone, what an influential instrument. The instrument is really, if you take just a guy like Charlie Parker, I mean, everyone's trying to copy Charlie Parker. Or even today, I'm trying to copy Charlie Parker. Everyone is. So it's so funny that this instrument has so immensely contributed to the canon of music. Let's take a walk down memory lane, Aaron. So let's talk about one of the earliest major players then on the saxophone.
Yeah, I think in terms of recorded music, one of the first well-known saxophone players was Sidney Bechet. He played the soprano instrument that's common again. It wasn't really so much for a while.
Just so we can differentiate, there are, just to make it a little bit more complicated, there's more than one type of saxophone, right?
Right, yeah. There's four common types, the soprano being the highest one of the four. Yeah.
The soprano, so it looks like a long, it's straight, right? It's basically not curved like the typical saxophone you imagine.
Yeah, I mean, there's some different types of them, but yeah, I think most soprano saxophones aren't curved. It's not the image or really the sound that you might have in mind when you think saxophone. Right. I guess right off the bat.
So why was Sidney Bechet great?
Well, he had I guess he's most remembered for he had a very well known solo on the tune "Summertime."
Okay, so "Summertime," Sidney Bechet. That's a really important recording.
Yeah, of course.
What year was that, actually?
Oh, man.
I put you on the spot. Maybe I can wiki it. But it is if it's a famous one, I think most people could find it, right?
Yeah, most people can find it. I think what
was great about that recording?
I think his... First off, just taking an extended improvised solo, he took a couple choruses. He took an extended solo over it, which was kind of novel at the time. Even later on through the 40s, you didn't see a whole lot of that.
So yeah, people didn't really take long solos right back in the day.
No, not really. I mean, there's a couple reasons for that. I think with limits in technology and recordings, like longer solos didn't really get recorded because they wouldn't.
Singles were like 3 minutes or something. So it was a very short.
Right, yeah,
very short.
Had to fit on a side of vinyl.
I kind of like that. Actually. Yeah, I like that in a way because it keeps everything it keeps the brevity, keeps it short, and people really pack in a lot of ideas. Do you think they were really conscious when they walked into the studio and like, okay, we only have 3 minutes, let's really plan this out and execute it really well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of Charlie Parker solos that got recorded, you kind of see that. I know we didn't quite get to him yet, but
well, he's a really big name. Let's save him for a little bit later. So moving past Sidney Bechet, who else is a really important? Let's take the next step forward. Yeah,
I guess there's like maybe a handful of swing era guys that I think are pretty important.
We have to also mention that jazz. It's not just one big fat genre called jazz. It's actually you can cut it up right into a few different eras, so to speak.
Yeah,
if you could read Aaron, in like 30 seconds, what are the brief eras in jazz?
So early jazz. You think of Sidney Bechet, New Orleans jazz, like maybe like Louis Armstrong, the swing era 40s. Like if I name like Cy Oliver, Glenn Miller, some Duke Ellington. Bebop, which we'll get into shortly, which is small group jazz.
I love that era. That's my favorite era. And then after Bebop?
Yeah, I guess hard bop, which is sort of an extension of bebop, cool jazz, and modal jazz, which is more of a theory thing. But and then you're getting into contemporary stuff, avant-garde, free jazz,
Right.
soul jazz, plus some other musical tradition after bebop.
Right. So let's take a step back into the swing era. So would you say Coleman Hawkins is kind of a swing jazz player?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, and he was. I think he's best remembered as being one of the early saxophonists that kind of learned chord changes like the way maybe a guitarist or a pianist would. Other
Right.
people have in the past, but they had mostly played by ear, like people call it, where you just kind of hear a melody over
Right.
top of what the rhythm section's
But that's
doing.
interesting,
So
right? Some of the old songs, right? If you take a song like Indiana, they have like you have to hit the right chords. So how do those old players hit the right notes if they're not thinking of the chord changes?
oh well, I would think you would just have to take a lot of repetitions. Like I think every jazz musician, when they're or any improviser, maybe in general, you could say when you're learning, you have to try things, and a lot of it's not going to work. Like you have to be
It's trial
willing
and error.
to. Yeah, and I'm sure for them, like the better known ones, they probably had developed very good ears in that. I mean, like they could get the ability to hear like notes that were going to work over different chord changes. And
Right.
chord changes like were maybe a little bit simpler than they are in like contemporary jazz.
Right.
So that
If you take a
helps a
song
bit.
like if we just took Indiana, right? So it goes from the one chord and it goes straight to 6/7, right? The dominant on six, right? So
Yeah.
you
The second
can't
chord, not
the second chord immediately if you stay in the key, you're going to be out, right? So like if you
yeah, that's
so
true.
they have to know in some ways. And if you think about it, back home in Indiana, that's an old song, right? That's not exactly like Giant Steps or like it's not like a moment's notice, that kind of song, right? So to be fair, like in the sense, would you say the older players were they kind of instinctively found those right notes after a lot of like feeling it out, and they were very riff based, right? They used to play a lot of riffs in a sense in the big bands and everything.
Yeah. There's definitely some vocabulary that's important. It was typically very simple. Like the swing era, that was pop music at the time.
It's funny,
and
yeah,
it was
that
dance music.
that was popular
for-
music, yeah, where the young kids would go
Yeah.
out and like, I wonder what makes me
Yeah,
wonder
right.
what like the older generation at that time was listening to. They must have been listening to like operas and arias, that kind of thing, or like musical theater.
Yeah. There was a stigma even amongst classical players and older non-musicians, even, that jazz was evil, or like you hear it
It's so
described a lot
interesting. Yeah, I
historically
mean,
as the devil's music.
yeah, it's very interesting. I remember that. But you know, a lot of these classical composers were trying to make some money writing popular songs, which is so interesting. If you look, I think Heifetz, who was a famous violin player, he was selling pop songs on the side too. I think he had a pen name. he wasn't Heifetz. Okay, so Coleman Hawkins really thinking about the chord changes. And if you take a song, talk a little bit about that famous recording he did, Body and Soul. Does it have a lot of chord changes in it?
Yeah, I think that's one of along with Sidney Bechet, Summertime, that's one of the first solos. Like if you do like a college woodwind course, or you study like jazz improvisation in college, you definitely go over Coleman Hawkins' Body and Soul.
Right. That's a really
one of the-
important solo, right, for anybody really to look at.
Yeah, I agree. He kind of got away from those riffs a little bit, and he used a lot of arpeggiated chords. He was one of the first. That was one of the first recorded solos where you could hear altered chords. Like he would change the chords in a way that also worked.
Well, give an example.
way-
So, like, you're saying he put like a substitution. He played a different chord over the chord that was going underneath. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly.
So give an example of that. Like what we can get technical in here. This is a different kind of show. So.
Awesome. Yeah. What stands out to me, probably the more common one, is called a sub five, like where you take the fifth, the five chord, it's the fifth, starting on the fifth note of the scale.
Yep.
And you substitute it with a chord down a half step
so
from the
is
two
that
chords.
is that the tritone?
The tritone substitution,
Right,
that's the other well-known name for it, because it's a tritone away from the five chord.
I see. Okay. So he was doing that. He was doing that throughout the song, or in isolated parts.
Yeah, in isolated parts. I mean, it's a sound that it's a really powerful sound.
Right.
You can kind of hear it a bit in like similar sounds like in romantic music too, where like you don't hear composers like overuse that because it's such a distinctive sound.
That's a very interesting thing. So really what's happening, and this is I would love. So it's hard to really explain. People have to really hear it. It's quite a revolutionary kind of thing to do in jazz, right?
Yeah, I think so, because you really have to understand like the function of the five chord harmonically, like what it's accomplishing, and then you decide in the moment when you're improvising to strengthen that sound by playing something that isn't part of the key that you're in. Basically, it's kind of
That's really interesting. So that's Coleman Hawkins, and he's probably in the swing period. Let's move a little bit forward. What do you think of Dexter Gordon?
I mean, I think especially when I was in college and in the years after, I cited him as my favorite saxophone player.
Really? Okay, so why did you like him so much?
I think that he took that melodic style from the swing era and mixed it with bebop. Like he was a swing era musician that embraced bebop. He was maybe a little younger than people like Coleman Hawkins or some of those other guys we didn't really get to. And
what recordings of Dexter Gordon are really like famous or really good to know?
Yeah, so he has a handful of albums. I think like his most well-known tune is called Cheesecake. You like to name a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I noticed like, a lot of these jazz musicians always name their songs after food. Like Oleo is a type of margarine, right? That's chicken giblets or something.
Yeah, there's like a lot of them. Even Dexter, he had like fried bananas. So that was another one. My favorite Dexter Gordon album is actually a live one from towards the end of his career, where he was living in, and it was called Swiss Nights. There's Volume 1 and Volume 2. Okay. I like Volume 1. In my mind, it's a perfect jazz set. He had a really well-known album.
Do you like when an artist is older? Do you feel I always have this kind of a preconception that they're not the same player like they was. Like a good example for me is Bud Powell. I love Bud Powell very much, and his later recordings when he's kind of out of it, he's got a lot of issues with in his personal life, and he still can play, but it's not with that same fire, or it's not with that same. He's kind of, maybe he's fed up with the whole thing. But what if you think about Dexter Gordon? Like, what's so special about when his older, later recordings? I think he kept himself in good shape on his saxophone. It was obvious that he was still playing a lot. His sound, if anything, got a lot bigger, maybe even brighter. He was playing on a more modern saxophone at that point than the one he had when he was younger. And did saxophones change in that period, or did they go through an evolution?
Yeah. Throughout the '60s and the '70s, I think that that they did. They became narrower. The sound changed a lot. There's really well.
That's amazing. So the technology. What about the technology that made Did it become better modern? I assume they become much better, right?
That's been the conception. Honestly, the saxophone I'm playing on right now is from before that. It's from 1955.
You're kidding me? Really?
Yeah. I think that the saxophones after that had a lot of advantages that lent themselves very well to more contemporary playing. There's the company Selmer made.
That's the famous brand, right, for saxophones?
Yeah, right. And they kind of they changed the game sort of. They had a couple types of saxophones, a super balanced action, and the Mark VI, which is probably the most famous. It's commonly cited as the holy grail of saxophones. And those two kind of changed
Why
the
is
game.
It the holy grail? Why is it the holy grail? Is it like a Steinway kind of thing?
Yeah. Well, they have their sound. I mean, if you listen to a professional saxophone player, there's a significant chance they're playing on a Mark VI. I mean, so they're older horns. I think at the time, maybe one of the biggest innovations was they moved some of the low notes to the other side of the saxophone, like physically, and used springs to make the keys easier to push down. Like before that, it was kind of hard to get the keys down.
Is that like an action thing, like on the guitar and the piano? Like it changes the feel of pushing down those the buttons. Is it the buttons? Is that what you say?
Yeah, like the keys we usually call them, but yeah, similar idea.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah. There's a bunch of keys. All the
keys,
low notes.
Right.
Yeah, all the low notes on the saxophone.
What's the lowest note? What's the lowest note on the saxophone?
It depends on the type of saxophone. Like,
so let's say
I think
that's right.
I mean, like we transpose, like we're transposing instruments, which means like even though all the four common types of saxophones are all in different keys.
Yeah. There's a reason for that. It's so that for ease of reading, right, in an orchestra.
Yeah, so that you're reading on the staff, you're not reading like above or below lines. It really far. Yeah, right. When you run out of staff, you have to draw extra lines, you know. So it kind of
to jump back to Dexter Gordon, was he a fast player like Charlie Parker? Was he like a Coleman Hawkins playing the changes? I want to get an idea of like Dexter Gordon's. If you could summarize Dexter Gordon in a sentence, how would you summarize him? Powerful.
Yeah, his tone is what he's best known for.
Okay, so it's like a powerful, rich tone.
Very, very huge sound. It sounded like
Is it because he's a huge guy, right? Dexter, he's a very tall guy.
What's his nickname? Long, tall Dexter.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
and he's older, right? Isn't he older than Charlie Parker, I think? Or is he like around the same age?
I believe he was older, yeah.
So he was a generation. Then I guess he was slightly before Charlie Parker. So I guess we have to get to Charlie Parker then, the big one, the famous one. He was like a meteor, right? Talk a little bit about him.
Yeah, he was one of the founders of Bebop, I guess, if you want to call him a founder. He's one of the first people to play like that, for sure.
And what does like that mean? So Bebop. If you could categorize Bebop, how would you describe it?
The characteristics of it. The most obvious thing is the tempos were the fast.
We're talking how fast, beats per minute. How fast?
Charlie Parker sometimes up almost near 400 beats per minute, like insanely fast.
When he's doing when he's doing some of those rhythm changes, right? He like Anthropology. My goodness, I've heard some recordings of him at the Summit or the finale one. I think it was the Summit, and it's diabolical. They didn't speed them up, right? Those recordings were they that fast?
Yeah, these were very virtuosic musicians, and they practiced. Pedagogy. Like Charlie Parker was really big into etudes and sort of practiced for a while, at least more almost like a classical musician, then applied that technique to jazz. And that's one of the other characteristics of bebop, virtuosity, like longer phrases, and notes that aren't part of the key. What does that mean? So like, is that more than the tritone substitution? The tritone substitution became very common, but there's also different elements that they use, like the chromatic scale is all 12 pitches in this musical system. Okay. And he would use pretty much all of them on a lot of chords. It's kind of interesting. What we learned from bebop was that one of the most common types of chords in jazz and music in general is the dominant chord.
Right.
And it's like naturally it's the 5 chord in a major scale, but
Right.
you can play pretty much any note of the chromatic scale over it. I mean, there's only one that really doesn't work if you hold it. The other 11 notes, they work. So if you use them the right way, that is. And
Do they land on chord tones when they're? I've noticed one thing about Charlie Parker. Rhythmically, he seems to be very free. It's not like he. It seems like he takes off at random beats of the bar and lands in random beats of the bar, but the phrase makes sense.
yeah, it does. He was. I think what stands out to me about Charlie Parker's playing was that his control over his phrasing, whereas mostly when with other jazz musicians, like really just in general, you hear two measure phrases, musical sentences. If you want to think of it that way, 4 measures, 8 measures, it's all very like binary, like multiples of 2. Charlie Parker, he would take like a 1 measure phrase and then like a 7 measure phrase or 3 or whatever.
That's what I love. I love that rhythmic freedom he has. I think that's what makes him so special. Is I don't see. Do you think that came from his? I'm sure he must have taken some stuff from his etude books, right? When he practiced a lot of them. I could hear there was one line that he did. I can't remember. It was like from some classical, or it was a famous classical march or something. I can't remember what it was, but he kept quoting that all the time. I was thinking to myself, he knows a lot. He must have known a tremendous amount of music.
Yeah, I would think so. And moreover, when you think of Charlie Parker and maybe one of his the Dizzy Gillespie, who was a trumpet player, one of his contemporaries that he worked with at points in his career quite extensively, then they had notebooks full of like vocabulary that they either acquired from things like etudes or other musicians or other songs, and then all these like completely new ideas that they pretty much just came up with. They just write it down, learn it 12 keys, learn how to apply it. It was practical music theory.
That's amazing. So that, like, for instance, ideas. That's a very interesting thing, because I was reading a story. I was reading a letter that Mozart wrote to his dad, and he was complaining about this student he was teaching, and that the student had no ideas, like no original ideas, or couldn't come up with ideas. And I think that's a theme, right? When it's not enough to just play a scale up and down, right? You got to take some patterns, right? You have to come up with something, right, with the scales, rhythmically or harmonically. Can you talk a little bit about generating ideas? With any style of music, it comes down to like the way it's usually described as vocabulary. Right.
Some things like sometimes it's stuff you've heard before, or sometimes it's manipulating a phrase you heard, such as like you were talking with Charlie Parker and some of the classical stuff he could apply to jazz.
Right.
And then patterns. Basically, you take like a scale or a chord or something, and you form. Take like a short idea, I guess, like 4 notes or so, and move it up and down the scale, or move it up and down chromatically, and
Is
you can
music limitless in that regard? Are there infinite numbers of ideas that you can come up with?
Well, mathematically, probably not, but there's definitely more than anybody, most people could do in their lifetime, you know.
So that's a really important point that actually I want to say, because you guys, like you and Wayne, are just phenomenal musicians, and there's lots of new things to be said in music. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, I think so, and at this point, like within like our within this like 12 note system, like a lot of the ideas have been, at least to some extent, explored already.
Okay.
What Wayne and I try to do is like combine ideas that fit into the jazz tradition and like combine them in different ways. But that's really nothing new. I guess probably that's pretty much what everybody's doing, you know. But I think.
No, but I mean, if you guys have your own unique sound, I mean, there's nothing. It's unique. I mean, it's you guys. That's right. That's the interesting thing, and that's what makes the album so exciting. Yeah. So why did you guys call it? I'm curious. Why did you guys call it "Over the Edge"?
Well, "Over the Edge" was the name of one of Wayne's songs, and it's the title track from the album. Obviously, I describe it as an upbeat, very very like fast jazz tune. It kind of sounds like the name implies. It's sort of it's very assertive. There aren't too many chords, and it's kind of up to the improviser to come up with ideas over it.
That's interesting. That if you think about like lots of chords. Okay, we were actually getting into a period in jazz, like Charlie Parker's period, the bebop era. That was, I guess you could categorize it with a lot of chords, right? Bebop, there was a lot of chords moving around pretty fast.
Right. Yeah, they were chord progressions from popular songs or swing era songs, or just like American songbook tunes. Think like Cole Porter or George Gershwin, and they would take those harmonies, and at least ones that they found inspiring. They tended to be harmonies that harmonic progressions that had a lot of chords in them,
right?
Because that kind of fit the style.
How is pop music so? It really tells me that if you give the listening audience a chance, they could dig it. You know what I mean? I mean, like if that was popular music back in the day, there's no reason. I mean, the human brain really hasn't changed that much. They can definitely appreciate music with a bit more complexity. I mean, just take any of these. How High the Moon, right? That was a pop song, right? Wasn't it? That was like a
yeah.
And How High the Moon has some interesting chords going on. I mean, there's the minor section it modulates. Modulation, I think that's one thing that gets me nowadays, that I kind of get annoyed with common pop songs. And the songs that I transcribe nowadays have a lot of very similar chords. They move like a 1 to a 5 to a 6 to a 4. But I'm so interested in how music can be good and also have complexity in it. What do you think about that? What do you think about the capacity for the audience to really get interesting music?
Yeah, I mean, to me at least, interesting music is anything with energy in it, not necessarily like fast or whatever, but even when you're playing slow, it has energy. I think there's a couple modulations and chord progressions that maybe get overused in pop music that's been going on for.
Oh, you say those. Say what they are.
Well, I guess 1-6-4-5 is a common one. Yeah. 1-5-6-4. I could come up with like a bunch of songs that use that one.
Nowadays, we have these minor key songs in the minor key, but it's just like a 1 minor going to a flat 6 to a flat 7 back to a 1 minor. It's just just over and over. It just seems like it uses a minor chord. It like sort of relies on a minor chord within a major scale. I think one of the areas that the jazz is kind of different in classical music too is we change one of the notes of that minor scale, or more than one sometimes, and to create like a leading tone, like the 7th scale degree being a half step. I'm not a theorist. I've always maybe you could help me answer this. There are like I guess you could say there are 3 minor scales in the sense of the harmonic, the melodic, and the natural. Right. The melodic, as it's known to be in the classical form, goes up, and you naturalize the 6 and the 7, and then when you come down, you go back to the normal natural minor scale. Why is that the case? Why is it called the melodic minor? And I know in jazz we use that over certain minor progressions, but what's the purpose of the melodic minor scale? Why can't you use just like the natural minor notes in a scale?
Well, if you, I think the answer comes from like all the way back to the Baroque period, really.
Oh, man. To answer this, we have to go back 400 years.
Really. If you listen to Gregorian chant, one of the characteristics of that sound, they use like Aeolian, that natural minor, and they use sort of a similar scale called Dorian, which sounds very minor.
So we're talking about modes now, which is basically starting on a different point of the major scale and building off that collection of pitches.
Right. And and these scales all kind of sound fairly similar. The modal ones, they all come from the same like parent major scale that we all know. And the one of the things that when you play the 7th note of the scale in a major key, it has this really strong resolving tendency.
Right, that major 5 in a minor key, that major 5 chord or the 5 dominant sounds a lot stronger than that regular 5 minor chord that you see in the natural minor key. Although we always see that 5 minor in like R&B songs, right? The 4 minor, 5 minor, and 1 minor. That kind of you always see that.
Yeah. You see, you see it. You see it sometimes in like contemporary like dance music and whatnot. But yeah, that 7 scale degree, it generates a major 5 chord. It creates tension. At the time, it was kind of revolutionary because the tritone wasn't really a popular interval at that point
right.
that we were mentioning before.
I'm kind of curious about one thing, Aaron. What happened to the diminished chord in the sense that I feel like in pedagogy we don't often we think of the whole half scale and the half whole, even though I know a guy like Barry Harris doesn't really talk like that, but I've heard him get really angry when that's mentioned. But that's an octatonic scale. But if we just talk about the diminished chord, it's almost completely vanished from popular music if you think about it. But it's such a beautiful sound, right? I mean, it's the diminished chord, that sound. It's very important in jazz, right?
It is, yeah, and it's built into the harmonic minor scale where we're talking about that raised 7, and I think in jazz, and also actually you're hearing it come back in some stuff like I had to learn some, Bruno Mars tunes recently for a cover band, and there's a lot of diminished chords.
Which song are you talking about?
Oh man, it was a slow jam. It was one of his more recent ones. I'm going to think of the name in just a second.
I got to say, with Bruno Mars, I like his descent into 70s funk and his the new jack swing Bruno Mars. But I like that 70s funk sound that he has. I like the new jack swing sound. I mean, that's a very cool sound, I think. But,
I think that the song I was singing about was "That's What I Like" has some diminished chords.
Wait, does it have diminished chords in it?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, wow, that's a very good song harmonically. I mean, it's not appropriate for kids, but like if you could just look at that song musically, it's a very interesting song, right?
Yeah, it is, and I mean, maybe you could interpret some of those diminished chords as major 5s and minor keys, of course, but it uses that sound, and I think. It's
we got to look at it.
It hasn't gone away.
Everybody
really.
should check out that song, at least the clean version. But it is, I like it when music has some interest like this, some interesting sound. It feels like the diminished chord just completely has disappeared, almost off the map. If you think of like, I remember when I did an internship somewhere, and the guy who was my supervisor was like, "Yep, okay, the 1 chord is major, the 2 and the 3 and the 6 are minor, the 4 and the 5 are major, and I don't know about that 7 chord though."
Yeah.
What do you do with that 7 chord in the major key?
In the major key, that's a minor 7 flat 5, or we call it half diminished sometimes when we want to sound cool.
You never use it. You never use it unless it's like a 2-5, like a 2-5 going to a 6 or something.
You did the 6, If you have to change. You have to add a leading tone in the 6 chord,
But what would you do? Let's say if you didn't even go to the 4-note chord on the 7, if you just have that basic diminished triad. That's like a substitute for the 5 chord, right? In some way.
Yeah, it is, and it's sort of. I think it doesn't get used as much because it's a more subtle sound, like maybe as an alternative to the 5 chord, especially if you don't play 7 or you don't play a fully diminished chord. And the mode is called Locrian. It's it's an unstable sound, but it's a little more subtle than the 5 chord. So you can play like Locrian over it, or at Berklee there's a sort of a popular scale like Super Locrian. You change and modify a note. So
that's interesting. Now we're talking into pedagogy for jazz education. That's a very interesting broad topic too. What do you think? When you're learning jazz, I know there's old school guys who are like, man, use your ears. You know what I mean? But I know there's some people, maybe they go a little too analytic when it comes to analyzing solos. Because I highly doubt. Do you think Charlie Parker was thinking of modes? He was probably thinking more tonic and dominant, right, when he was playing?
Yeah, and the music that he was playing like a lot of the early bebop or bebop music in general, like kind of was very much in the major and minor keys, like tonality, like traditional tonality. And modal jazz didn't really come along until later. You saw like Miles Davis even like a bit later than that. So
I'm kind of curious. So for Over the Edge, what kind of sound are you guys going for?
Yeah, it was like a lot of our project. It was inspired by hard bop jazz.
Okay. Well, what is hard bop?
Yeah, it was, well, I guess like chronologically is the music that kind of came after
you could have timed
Parker.
This perfect. It's a perfect tour through jazz.
Yeah, right.
So describe what are the characteristics of hard bop?
It retains a lot of the chromaticism and fast tempos and kind of like standard chord progressions. If you think of some of the musicians, like Cannonball Adderley stands out, or Freddie Hubbard was a sort of inspiration to Wayne, the co-leader on my project, who wrote Over the Edge, and
really?
sort of
really? Okay. That's
yeah.
So, like, who are Wayne's favorite players? I'll probably get him on the show, but
yeah,
is there a certain sound that he kind of really enjoys?
I don't want to steal his thunder too much, but
give us a little taste of
his favorite musician is Wynton Marsalis, who
he's great
from a jazz standpoint. He's also a great classical player, but from a jazz standpoint,
I really like Wynton Marsalis. I think he's a good spokesman for jazz, and I think he's a great player too.
Yeah, I agree, and his sound is like when he plays bebop was sort of very similar, especially in his early years, to Freddie Hubbard, and a specific album that we reference a lot with our project in terms of.
Okay, I think like, jazz trumpet. I'm gonna grill Wayne when he comes on the history of jazz trumpet. But I want to say I don't have you for much longer. I need to dive into more saxophone if I can. So
yes,
let's go. Let's go to like Sonny Rollins. Would you consider him bebop or hard bop, or kind of the both things?
Hard bop. Although a lot of his music is more maybe experimental. He kind of had sort of an experimental streak. You could hear him play like one of the albums that kind of stands out, where he kind of maybe even gets away from bebop. It's sort of an interesting album to listen to, is Sunday Meets Hawk, where he plays with Coleman Hawkins, one of his idols, and it sounds like almost he's playing out a lot, like he's not really playing the chord change.
When you get to playing out, what does that really mean, playing out?
Well, playing out is when you at least temporarily deviate from the chord progression. I mean, I think when people do it well, they're able to get back in, so to speak. Right. So you still have control over it. And Sonny Rollins was definitely one of those people. He was very good at playing within the changes and then consciously deviated from them when he wanted sort of a different sound. The sound is kind of is a lot harsher than playing inside the chord changes.
How does what is an improviser thinking out? Because that actually opens up there's a whole universe that you could go out of the key into. So what are the kind of the standard out? I mean, it's funny you can say a standard ways of going out, but what are the standard ways of not playing in the key and then resolving?
Yeah, well, one of Sonny Rollins' contemporaries, John Coltrane, kind of taught people how to do that in sort of an organized way. He would use cycles to get out of the key. If you listen to, I guess it's most obvious.
What does that mean? What is it, cycles? He's on a bike? What does that mean?
Yeah.
What's that mean?
Yeah, so that's where you take a chord progression that's like, let's say, for example, one of the most common ones is the circle of fourths, where you're going up consistently.
So that's like from G to C to F to B flat, something like that?
Right, yeah, and you're moving more chromatically than, you're not really moving within a key, you're just changing the chord, I guess. So like
you are playing tonally, but how fast do you have to make these changes before you can get back in?
How fast?
So let's say,
depends.
let's say you have like 8 bars of maybe there's a 2-bar, maybe it's a 2-5-1 in for 4 bars. So you have a 2 1 bar, a 5 1 bar, and then two final bars of the 1. So like what cycles? How would you cycle into out and then come back in?
So you'd want to start in the key that you're in. So like if it's a 2-5-1 in the key of C, I guess for example you start in D minor, D Dorian, and over the 5 chord you start moving through different keys. Ones that work pretty well, like in fourths, maybe you might start on like E flat. If you're going in fourth, E flat, A flat, then D flat. So you're like kind of in a totally different key, but it sort of outlines the 5 chord a bit, and that's like kind of a common one.
Okay. Wow.
You could, and you can use these different cycles, and there's all kinds of different ones that you can use that to kind of go through some different scales before you end up back in the 1 chord. So it happens mostly over the 5 chord, especially in a long 2-5.
Right.
A 4 measure 2-5.
Is that what happens? Like if you take a song like Caravan, which you're just sitting on a dominant chord, right? That's like ripe material to kind of go out, so to speak.
Yeah, Caravan. Yeah, you're just sitting on it. You can play like we were talking about before, like a dominant chord. You can play pretty much any note and make it work the right way. Yeah, because like you can alter dominant chords in so many different ways. And Caravan, like in the sense when it was originally written, kind of even implies a flat 9.
Right.
Kind of harmonic minor, starting on a different mode if you want to get really deep into it.
Wow.
But you can play all these different cycles over it and get some cool results that maybe you can get some stuff that maybe you don't hear so much of. The whole point is to use it in a way that's tasteful and that you can avoid sounding like everybody else,
Aaron, I can't believe the time's flown so fast. I can't believe it. Right? This is a deep discussion. And you know what happened? Yeah. We did pretty much, I would say, the first half of the 20th century, I think. We kind of almost did a little bit over the first half. And I think I got to get you back on to finish off. I mean, there's Michael Brecker. Then we get the modern guys, Chris Potter.
We didn't even really get the Coltrane too much.
We didn't even really touch Coltrane. Maybe that's good. That's a good starting point because in a way, Coltrane is kind of the modern jazz saxophone playing style, right?
Sure, you could summarize the history of jazz saxophone.
Take
with Charlie
that, Ken
Parker,
Burns.
John
Take that, Ken Burns. This is our version, That's real. Well, listen,
Charlie
Aaron,
Parker,
I had a fantastic time. If my audience probably is like, well, this guy knows a lot, I better check out his stuff. So where can my audience go and find out more about Aaron Gratzmiller?
Yeah, I have a website, www.aarongratzmiller.com. It's just my name, no spaces, no caps, and you can see a lot of stuff. We have a page for the quintet.
What's the name of the quintet again?
The Pearcy-Gratzmiller Jazz Quintet,
okay.
Or we call it PGJQ.
That's pretty cool.
It's pretty long,
Sounds like a radio station.
Yeah, it actually kind of does. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So we have a lot of content that's we're wrapping up with. So you'll see a lot of things online. You can like us on Facebook. We have a Facebook page. We have a Twitter.
That's awesome. So and the album is called Over the Edge. And do you want to talk really briefly about the Worcester Jazz Festival?
Oh yeah. We're planning. Well, as you mentioned, the Worcester Jazz Festival is what it's called. It's in Worcester, Massachusetts, central Massachusetts, and this is the first year it's happening. It's kind of exciting because it's kind of far enough out of Boston that it's its own entity, and it's happening this September.
The thing is, you are organizing it, right? You're putting it together.
Well, yeah, I'm one of a team of people that are organizing it. My role specifically, I'm putting together a program for high school jazz bands to compete and get adjudicated, and that's what my role is. But it'll be on September, I believe the 15th, but I have to look that up real quick.
Awesome. I'm going to put all these links up. Aaron, listen, it's been fantastic. You have to come back. We're going to talk about modern jazz playing after the next time you come on. We'll start with Coltrane. There's so much more to talk about. I mean, one thing I want my audience to know is that Aaron really plays really nice jazz piano too, and we didn't even touch about like jazz piano, and I'm sure there's a lot. I mean, there's just so much we could talk about. But look at that, the hour, it's just nothing, right? If we just start talking, it's crazy. Yeah, that's what I love about this show. We just start, and then whoops, it's all the time's gone. I'm having problems with bandwidth. I'm just like I'm uploading these long episodes, and I have like a cap, so I have to figure out.
Oh yeah.
But I am really enjoying it. I'd definitely pay to get this kind of quality up there. So listen, Aaron, thanks so much. Got to have you back again. Take care, okay? All the best.